The music industry scene can be unforgiving, dangerous, and most importantly, deceitful. That is what we learn from two of the people we'll be looking at today. Yun-Jin Lee, a music producer and boss of Ji-Woon Hak, or better known as his stage name, the Trickster, as we look at their lore to figure out what happened and how they got here. Yun-Jin Lee, self-interest music producer, resilient and ambitious. Yun-Jin was born into a life of hardship, finding success in the music industry after years of effort and self-sacrifice. As a child, Yun-Jin was fascinated by sound, mimicking drums and hitting keys on the piano. When she turned 10, however, she lost her instruments. Her family was heavily in debt and did not make the payments in time. The creditors took everything they owned, including the house. Yun-Jin held her 4-year-old sister tightly as she cried. They moved into a windowless 2-bedroom basement. Since her parents worked day and night to pay their debt, Yun-Jin became her sister's caretaker. Every night she sang until they both fell asleep. At 17, the renowned record label Mighty One Entertainment came to our high school to audition talent. She was rejected as an idol trainee but obtained an unpaid internship at the studio. For the following years, she created some of the studio's biggest hits without any credit or recognition. To get her dues, she emerged in the public eye wearing flamboyant fashion and put sound bites into her songs that looped her artist's name, magnum opus. Fans began to recognize her songs and she became the producer of No Spin, a poorly performing boy band who needed her special touch. Dissatisfied with No Spin's commercial sound, she sought a rogue element to make the band stand out. Through her contacts and talent shows, she found the edgy, raw sound of Ji-Woon Hak. She relaunched No Spin with Ji-Woon as his newest member. Within hours, their first video was a viral sensation. Their success cemented Yun-Jin's reputation as a shrewd producer. Adorned in high fashion to attend luxurious events, Yun-Jin's harsh, impoverished childhood seemed far behind her. She moved into a penthouse and dined with socialites in skyline restaurants with breathtaking views of Seoul. The success of the first album broke records, setting the bar high for No Spin's second. As they were recording new tracks, the fire alarm suddenly blared. Concerned for her safety, Yun-Jin hurried to evacuate the building and left the dallying staff behind. Only when she bolted out into the street that she realized No Spin was nowhere amongst the coughing crowd. A goliath of flames engulfed the building, slowly tamed by the steady streams of fire hoses. All members of No Spin perished in the fire, except one, Ji-Woon. The album was ruined. The band was over. She would be shelved while Ji-Woon would rot away as an instructor for idol trainees. But she refused to be a victim who watched helplessly as vultures swooped in to take what was hers. Unknown to Mighty One Entertainment, she created new tracks to relaunch Ji-Woon's career. She pushed him to tap into his grief and create a song exploring the pangs of sudden loss. The music video showed Ji-Woon saying goodbye to each member of No Spin. Yun-Jin cleverly launched the song under Ji-Woon's newly adopted stage name, the Trickster. He would embody both fear and awe, like the legendary Dokapi spirits. Ji-Woon's song was a global phenomenon, its universal themes of grief and guilt resonating internationally. Together, Yun-Jin and the Trickster toured the world. Success greeted them on every shore. Yet disturbingly, so did a series of eccentric murders. Disconnection unsettled Yun-Jin, as she noticed that the tour date coincided with the victim's time of death. She was wary after the loss of No Spin and anxious to preserve her artist, so she increased the Trickster security detail. What if the serial killer was an unhinged fan fixated on the Trickster, inspired by the artist's morbid songs? Returning to Seoul, Yun-Jin worked with Ji-woon on his new material. When she entered the studio at the brink of dawn, she was surprised to see Ji-woon already there. He seemed exhausted, like he had worked all night. When she listened to his track, she discovered a bizarre intro filled with shrieks and snares. It was too experimental for her taste. A week later, another death was reported. The body showed traces of torture and was arranged in the same flamboyant style as previous murders. This time, diamond cufflinks gouged into the victim's eyes. The following day, the victim was on every television channel. A video from the victim's social media showed her squealing, surprised when her boyfriend handed her a heart-shaped birthday cake. Yun-Jin's stomach churned. That voice, so familiar, and yet she had never met the victim. The next morning, her heart froze when she listened to the Trickster's opening track. The shrieks in his song matched the victim's squeal. Did he sample the victim's birthday video? No, that was impossible. He had recorded this song before the murder was reported. She stared at Ji-woon on the other side of the booth's glass window. He was No Spin's only survivor. Everyone else was dead. Not to mention the eccentric murders that matched his tour dates. Death trails that seemed to coverage to him. If he caused this, no artist will survive the scandal. Yun-Jin's career, no, her life would be over. All she had would be destroyed. A wave of nausea surged over her. Heart racing, she rushed to the restroom. Wild thoughts blazed through her mind as she splashed icy water over her face. There had to be a simple explanation. Perhaps she was overworked. Or maybe she did not trust her success. Her mind was fabricating this suspicion because disaster was easier to trust than success. It was all in her head. She returned to the recording booth, eager to put her worries behind her. Months later, pressure came from Mighty One Entertainment executives. Revenue was down, and they blamed the Trickster since they disapproved the violent themes in his music and the knife tricks he pulled during performances. While Yun-Jin was furious they scapegoated her artist, she agreed that Ji-woon's sound was too niche to generate profit. She told Ji-woon she fought them off but was ultimately outnumbered. Because of her initial fury, he believed her to be on his side. They were given 3 months to create and perform the next hit for Mighty One. Months flew by and the time came for Yun-Jin to take a seat at the executive's private show. She was confident about her song, but as soon as the music started, she knew something was amiss. Dense foul smoke permeated the room. Yun-Jin coughed and gasped for air. The more she coughed, the more she inhaled. Her body sank in the chair, her limbs heavy and numb, and her eyes widened as she watched terrified. A nightmare come to life. The Trickster was a whirlwind of blood, slashing, stabbing, and chopping limbs. The executives were carved up like meat. They could not run. They were stuck, like Yun-Jin, paralyzed. Boiling rage swelled in her gut. How could she have denied her instincts? The fire, the murders on tour. It was him. It had always been him. And she had known from the start. Now her career was over. So was Mighty One. Everyone she had worked with, her colleagues, her friends, dying before her eyes. Everything she had, taken from her once more. No, she would not let him. He would pay. he would know her suffering. Suddenly, dark coils of black fog rose from the ground, and she was somewhere else. Bright lights flashed and blinded her. A spotlight found her in the darkness. Then a crowd erupted, chanting her name. Magnum opus. Magnum opus. She smiled and welcomed the darkness within. What some called selfish, Yun-Jin Lee calls practical. She didn't enter the music industry to make friends, though she can appreciate a little collaboration now and again. At the end of the day, she abides by an old classic. If you want something done right, do it yourself. As a self-interest music producer, she is able to advance her goals during turbulent times. Her personal perks, fast track, smash hit, and self-preservation allow her to improve her abilities when others are harmed and quickly escape from a chase. Fast track. Sometimes the sacrifice of others is necessary to get ahead. Whenever another survivor is hooked, fast track gains 3 tokens, up to a maximum of 27 tokens. You consume all accumulated tokens after a great skill check on a generator. Each token grants a stackable 1% progression bonus in addition to the default progression bonus for succeeding a great skill check.
The weak are sacrificed first. It's nature, it's business, it's the truth most refuse to face.
Self-preservation. Life is unforgiving. The more confirmation you get of that, the more prepared you become. Whenever another survivor is hit with a basic attack or special attack within 16 meters of you, self-preservation activates. Scratch marks, grunts of pain when injured, and bleeding are suppressed for the next 10 seconds.
Something I learned in the industry. When the axe is swinging, keep your head down.
Smash hit. When your rival makes a mistake, you seize the opportunity. After stunning the killer with a pallet, break into a sprint at 150% of your normal running movement speed for 4 seconds. Smash hit causes the exhausted status effect for 20 seconds. Smash hit cannot be used when exhausted.
I have dealt with psychopaths in suits. You're just uglier and worse dressed.
Now, this isn't the end for Yun-Jin Lee. As we go through her memories, there was one time where she almost caught Ji-woon in the act. So, let's have the observer take it away.
Fatigued from the long flight, Yun-Jin yawns as she turns on her laptop. She landed in Rio de Janeiro just 2 hours ago, but her work cannot wait. Looking through her mailbox, she spots a dozen unread emails from an unknown user addressing her by name. Few know her as Yun-Jin. Most only know her as Magnum Opus. She clicks on an email. A graphic, detailed description of someone's plan to murder her and the Trickster. Signed, the Trickster's #1 fan. Death threat. An abnormally specific one with a picture of her in the hotel lobby. Before the death of No Spin, she ignored such threats, but now, her manicured hand shakes as she reaches for her phone. The threat is too serious to be taken lightly. She calls her security crew for an emergency meeting. Outings are restricted to recording sessions and concert rehearsals only. A bodyguard is assigned to the Trickster and herself. Everyone complies with the new rules except for the Trickster, who argues against staying on the hotel premises. No surprises there. Her relationship with the Trickster has been on the rocks for months now. He challenges every decision she makes, his ego pushing her patience to its limit. Because of their frequent creative disagreements, their next album is behind schedule, forcing her to produce 3 new songs while overseeing his tour. Her security expert confirms that the phones are ready. At her request, a tracking GPS application was installed on all company phones. No one else knows about this. If the Trickster keeps testing her patience, this app will come in handy. It's for his own good, and hers. Yun-Jin pours herself a cup of coffee at the recording studio, stifling another yawn. Her temples are throbbing. The jet lag is hitting her hard. Plus, the constant threat of a crazed fan prevents her from getting any sleep at night. On her way back to the booth, she notices that the studio next to theirs is occupied. She peeks inside. A young man is laughing in the recording booth. He has an easygoing smile that could sell thousands of magazines. She recognizes the man at the mix table, Alano Muse, a semi-famous producer from San Diego. What is he doing in Rio? Some bits of fresh gossip could help re-energize her. She taps on the door's window. The door creaks open. He remembers her, of course. Who could forget the magnum opus? She invites herself in as he plays the track he is working on, a slow, predictable build for the bass line, formulaic, too safe to be of any interest. Then, an ethereal voice fills the room. Yun-Jin almost spills her coffee. The artist's voice is crystalline. His range is powerful, yet nuanced. Who is that? Alano tells Lucas, the young artist, to drop down his pitch a notch. Bad call. The track should be building up to push Lucas's range instead of confining it to a boring, generic sound. She walks up to Lucas and hands him her business card. Contact me when you're ready to become a serious artist. A pang of regret hits her on her way out. She said those exact words to the Trickster many years ago. Back then, she looked forward to working with him. Those days are long gone. At the hotel bar, Yun-Jin takes a sip of her cold caipirinha, the sugarcane liquor smoothing the sour burst of lime. Why did she give that young artist Lucas her business card? It's not like she can produce him. Another pang of nostalgia, another sip of caipirinha. She misses it, hunting new talents, the raw creative chaos of designing a bold sound, the adrenaline rush of the first album. Things are different now. Her time is split between handling the Trickster's growing ego and following a generic, endless production cycle. Is this the cost of success? Producing music that makes her cringe, not to mention handling arguments about bodyguards and curfews, while being threatened by a crazed, psychotic fan. Her life is so different from what she imagined as a little girl. Back then, music was the only good thing she had. She created tracks in her bedroom, imagining a stage of bright lights where she was safe, loud, and free. That is what pop music is to her, a vital dose of unapologetic release. Now, thanks to her success, she lives in a golden cage. Down goes the caipirinha. The bartender gives her a glance, and she nods. Keep them coming. She calls Mighty One executives for a virtual meeting and gives them the news. Once she finishes the 3 tracks in Rio, she is done with the Trickster. She will move on to producing the launch of Trainees. A Mighty One executive cuts her off. They have more urgent business to discuss. Damaging rumors are trending online. A disturbed, delusional fan claims to have murdered someone at a Trickster concert. Yun-Jin closes her fists, her long manicured nails digging into her palms, anything to keep her hands from shaking again. She will handle this mediatic storm for her brand's sake. But after Rio, she is done with the Trickster, whether Mighty One is willing or not. Online, rumors about the murder are trending. An anonymous post claims that the victim was last seen alive at the Trickster's VIP meetup after his concert in New York early this year. Yun-Jin remembers that night, not because of the concert, but because of a detail that has been replaying in her mind ever since. Bleeding scratch marks on the Trickster's forearms when he showed up at the concert's after-party. The rumors online were rekindling the suspicion she silenced before. Years ago, The Trickster and she arrived in Miami several days earlier than planned. Yun-Jin attended networking events while the Trickster rehearsed. 3 days following their arrival, a folk singer was found dead downtown near the bar where he performed. A security footage was released to the public, showing a man dressed in black, with his face covered, leading the singer down an alley. The dark, blurry footage revealed little about the suspect, but Yun-Jin noticed a detail that twisted her stomach in knots. She recognized the gold-rimmed headphones around the suspect's neck, with 2 large X's, one for each ear. It was the brand-new model of the Xerxes 1050X headphones, which few audiophiles knew about, and even fewer could afford. She recognized the model right away, because the Trickster favored their equipment over other expensive models. He wore a similar pair on the plane to Miami, but then switched to a lesser model for the rest of the tour, which only fueled her doubts. Back then, however, she was not in a good place. The death of No Spin was still fresh. Acute insomnia kept her mind in a haze, and the jet lag of the tour only worsened her state. In the end, she decided to let the police do their job and focus on hers, producing music. But now someone else was dead. Someone whom the Trickster might have been the last one to see alive. The headphones, the scratch marks, and the late night outs were details. But they added up. How many coincidences does it take to know? A knock on the door makes her jump. The head of security is here. Yun-Jin follows her gut. She confronts him. She bluffs about firing the whole security crew if he does not come clean. It pays off. She learns that the Trickster left the hotel premises last night. His bodyguard tried to follow, but lost him on the way. Yun-Jin pounds her fist on the table. Why would he leave the hotel? To go where? And to do what? Despite working with the Trickster for years, he is still no more than a stranger. While he generates incredible profit, it comes at a cost. If the Trickster is linked to a murder, so is she. Even if there is no evidence, even if it's just rumors, it's her life on the line, her entire career. She could never produce music again, and the worst part is, it's her own fault. She knows better than to trust someone in this industry. She needs to get answers before it is too late. Whatever the Trickster is doing at night, she must find out. Her doubts won't be quieted until she knows for certain. Yun-Jin leaves her security detail behind during the Trickster's rehearsal. What she is up to is not strictly legal, after all. She shows her VIP badge at the doorman and enters the Trickster's changing room. Perhaps she could find something in here that could be a clue as to what the Trickster is up to. Amidst the flamboyant costume, she looks for a clue. Receipts, notes, pictures. All she finds is a gym bag. Inside lies a water bottle, a few t-shirts, and his wallet. No bills or anything of interest in his wallet, except for his hotel room key card. Perhaps she is looking in the wrong place. Someone chatting loudly on the side of the door alerts her. She snatches the hotel key card and zips up the bag just as the Trickster's assistant walks in. Yun-Jin quells her thudding heart and keeps her expression impassive as she walks out. Whatever the assistant saw, she will not dare mention it, at least not to anyone who matters. Yun-Jin only pauses when she reaches the Trickster's hotel room, key card in hand. If she does this, there is no turning back. Yet if the Trickster is hiding something, she needs to know what it is before everyone else does, before it ruins her life. There can be no doubts. Yun-Jin pushes the door open. The Trickster's room is tidy, almost as if he barely spends time here. She goes through his luggage, a pile of odd clothes, all black hoodies and sweatpants, a black face mask, clothes she's never seen him wear on tour. A tap on the door. "Room service." Yun-Jin drops the face mask. "Come back later." She finds nothing odd in the room, except for a rare top-of-the-line sampler on his bedside table. Intrigued, She presses play. A series of loud, violent screams fill the room. The screeches sound genuine. Samples from a horror film? Yet she cannot fully shake her initial disturbing thought. What if it is genuine? What she finds next only enhances her discomfort. A sharpening kit for knives, whetstones and cleaning products, a whole collection of sharpeners. A past conversation overheard at the recording studio replays in her mind. Lucas, the young artist, introducing himself to the Trickster, asking about the flamboyant knife in his hands. The Trickster replying that he always keeps a blade on him. Yun-Jin picks up a whetstone. Why sharpen a stage prop? Sure, the Trickster used real knives to do stunt work as a kid, but it is no longer necessary. This obsession with knives is not just for show. And what is the point of sharpening a knife if it's not to use it? She shudders. Another noise at the door. Yun-Jin puts down the whetstone. I said, come back, The Trickster walks into the room, catching her off guard. Her eyes meet his. He is just the awkward kid I signed years ago. I will not let him drag me down. His outrage meets her fury. Yun-Jin picks up the sampler. Where the hell do you wander off at night? And what is this twisted horror bullshit? What if the media got a hold of it? Your career would be over. Trickster sighs and admits that after the death of No Spin, his mind drifted to a dark place. He rarely talks about their death, and she can tell why. That day still haunts her dreams. Time passes, but guilt remains. Yun-Jin spots his phone on the table. Grab a drink from the minibar, Trickster. Today's rehearsal is canceled. She keeps the sampler and reminds him to stay on hotel grounds until the concert. He nods in agreement. Good. For her ploy to work, he must think she trusts him. Yun-Jin looks out from her hotel room. Outside, the downpour is relentless, causing flash floods in parts of the city. She calls her staff. No matter how bad the storm is, the show must go on. Yet the weather is not to blame for the growing apprehension in the pit of her stomach. There is something off about the Trickster, a hunch she can no longer ignore, no matter how profitable he is. While he might seem sincere, years in the business have taught her that she cannot trust anyone. Yun-Jin grabs her phone and activates the GPS tracker on the Trickster's company phone. His location appears as a blue dot on the huge map of Rio. Her gut feeling is right. He is no longer on the hotel premises. The chase is on. Time to teach the Trickster a new trick. Yun-Jin slows down near Trickster's location. As she approaches, a gray sedan suddenly speeds off. She checks her phone. The blue dot is getting farther away on the map. Trickster must be in the car that just took off. Yun-Jin stomps on the accelerator and speeds off. After a few turns, she catches up with the sedan, which makes a sharp right. Yun-Jin follows, yanking the steering wheel while stomping on the brakes. Her car drifts into the turn, gliding towards a wretched narrow alley. The sedan accelerates and swerves left, entering a narrow street. Yun-Jin repeats her maneuver and drifts left, but the wheels hydroplane on the puddled asphalt, and the car spirals out of control. A thundering crash! Yun-Jin's head is propelled onto the steering wheel. A flash of white light, then a burning pain follows, coursing down her body from her neck to her lower back. Yun-Jin coughs and gasps at the pain. For a moment, all she can do is breathe. When she exhales, the pain lessens slightly. Loud rock is blaring on the radio. It's so loud. She reaches forward and turns it off absent-mindedly. A spot above her left brow is burning. She touches her forehead softly and winces. A drop of blood drips down her finger. The windshield is cracked on the passenger side. Yun-Jin moves slowly, carefully leaning over. It's okay. Everything is okay. I'm okay. She looks out. The car crashed into a street lamp on the passenger side. This could have been much worse. A familiar ding interrupts her thoughts. Her phone. Yun-Jin slowly leans forward, her hand searching under the seat. She grabs her phone and unlocks the screen. A text message from the Trickster. Help. Why would he ask for her help? Unless she missed something. Unless the Trickster is not the one she is chasing. Yun-Jin's heart skips a beat. The death threat. The Trickster's #1 fan. Perhaps the crazed fan found out about the Trickster's nightly escapades and decided to strike. Kidnappings go hand in hand with death threats, after all. She lets out a curse. In her rush to chase the Trickster, she left her bodyguard behind. If anything happens to the Trickster Ji-woon and she was too blind to stop it. No, she has enough guilt on her conscience already. Yun-Jin readjusts her seatbelt. She turns on the ignition and the engine coughs in response. She grits her teeth and tries again. It won't be like the fire. I won't give up on him. She turns on the ignition again. And again. On the third try, the engine revs back to life. She puts her phone back on the dashboard and follows the blue dot. Yun-Jin follows the GPS until she reaches a desolate parking lot facing several abandoned warehouses. The blue dot remains immobile. This is it. Ji-woon should be here somewhere. But where? As Yun-Jin steps out of the car, a heavy curtain of rain falls on her sore, shivering body. Daylight is cloaked by dark storm clouds. The parking lot is filled with broken-down cars. Yun-Jin uses her cell phone's flashlight to find the gray sedan. As thunder rumbles, her phone illuminates a bloodied handprint on a car window. She rushes to the door and peeks inside. A sudden blur of motion. She pulls the door open. A rat skitters out of the car. Some items lie on the back seat. Ji-woon's phone. A rag. And some rope. Yun-Jin closes her prickling eyes. She might be too late. There's no time to waste crying. If Ji-woon is still alive, he needs all the help he can get. Yun-Jin grabs her phone and calls the police, then her security crew. Whatever this crazed fan has planned, it ends now. Rumbling thunder. Yun-Jin is staggering through the rain, looking for a clue, a trail. An icy gust lashes her drenched body, but she cannot stop, not until Ji-woon is safe. A rat skitters over a puddle upon which lies a white business card. Yun-Jin picks up the blood-stained card and reads, Magnum Opus, music producer. It's hers. With a shudder, she realizes she might know the person who kidnapped Ji-woon. Police sirens are blaring in the distance, but she cannot tell if they are coming for her or the several people caught in the storm. Yun-Jin shouts Ji-woon's name, yelling in despair over sirens and thunder. Then she hears a scream coming from across the parking lot, where stands an abandoned warehouse. She rushes to the warehouse, reaching its wide doors. A chain is wrapped around the handles, padlocked into place. Meanwhile, police are arriving on the scene. A brutal scream emerges from the warehouse. She cannot afford to wait. What happened to No Spin cannot happen again. Never again. Picking up a lead pipe from the ground, she strikes the padlock again and again. Ji-woon! Ji-woon! The padlock breaks open.
Ji-Woon Hawk, the Trickster. Ji-Woon Hawk thrived under the attention of others, energized by every eye that watched him and every tongue that spoke his name. Amidst the prestige, he had only one desire: more. Even as a child, he found ways to draw crowds. Working at his family restaurant, he attracted business with spectacles he performed using throwing knives. Gullible tourists believed this was a traditional South Korean experience, gladly parting with their money to witness it. Ji-Woon's father spent the restaurant's earnings on dancing and vocal lessons for his son, pushing him to attain the fame he never could. Ji-Woon did not disappoint. After years showcasing his abilities to nobodies at talent shows, he hit the track to stardom. Yun-Jin Lee, a producer at Mighty One Entertainment, recruited Ji-Woon into her training program. He transferred to a dormitory in Seoul where, for 14 hours a day, he was crafted into a star, taught how to move and sing, how to carry himself with the right balance of confidence and modesty. Draining as the process was, it worked. Yun-Jin selected Ji-Woon to join the band No Spin, bringing a raw energy to their tracks. Fame was almost immediate. Ji-Woon lived in a daze of interviews and adoration, and though the frenzied schedule exhausted his bandmates, he was invigorated. Each day was an affirmation that he was greater than the mediocrity society spewed out. But, over time, the champagne grew stale. When he looked at his fans, he saw their joy and envy split 5 ways, thinned out between each band member. The validation that had surged through him left a desperate yearning for more. Ji-Woon kept up impressions, mimicking a charm long buried under loathing. He recorded the latest No Spin album with his bandmates, never missing a beat. After a lengthy lunch break, he returned to the studio to discover fate had granted him a gift. The scent of burning wires was unmistakable. He rushed to the control room, finding the door blocked by fallen speakers. On the other side, his bandmates pounded on the door, their cries accompanied by the crackling of flames. Ji-Woon called to them, dashing to the speakers, grabbing one and stopping. He froze. Each breath was a conscious, deliberate process requiring all his attention. The nearby cries hardly audible until, slowly, he backed away, and then he heard it. They were screaming his name as they burnt, screaming for him to save him. Ji-Woon, Ji-Woon, Ji-Woon Hawk. It was the most beautiful thing he had ever heard. When the fire crew arrived, his tears were genuine. Ji-Woon was celebrated as a tragic figure, a hero who did all he could in a futile attempt to save his friends. Yun-Jin paraded him through interviews until it was time to rebrand. He was reborn as the Trickster, a solo artist who produced his own songs, sporting a soft heart beneath a wild exterior. But away from concert setups and television stages, something darker grew. He targeted those who lived alone, coming to them in the night. The first was a college music student with a captivating voice. Ji-Woon woke him up with a baseball bat to the skull, binding his arms and legs, gagging him with a rag duct taped into his mouth. He tortured him for hours, dissecting him alive. Yet there was something missing. A sound. A connection. He wanted to hear the victim's wondrous voice pleading as he cut his belly open, but all he received was a muffled cry through a rag. He learned and adjusted. Victims had to be abducted, driven to an abandoned building where he could let their voices carry unrestrained emotion. He made music from them, prodding the right places to invoke different types of shrieks and howls. Stabbing into quadratus lumborum elicited a long guttural wail, while slashing the carotid artery created a sound like a cat being strangled. There was honesty in their suffering. Ji-Woon recorded each session, synthesizing and working them into his songs, hiding them behind layers of melodies. He was elated with his work. He left hints for police, arranging a mink boa from a recent photo shoot around a victim's slashed throat. For his next killing, he removed the teeth from a man that a boxer in one of his music videos was without. During a particularly audacious plea for attention, he killed a fan he had met during a VIP meetup, replacing her eyes with a diamond cufflinks and writing, "I have seen God in blood" across her chest. Each scene was a dazzling spectacle. Between music and murder, Ji-woon's work was discussed globally. However, as violence became his preferred art style, his music career took a hit. Revenue was down and Mighty One executives pointed their finger at him. Yun-Jin, with professional fury, came to his defense, but she was outnumbered. It was decided that Ji-woon could no longer self-produce his music. The decision was devastating. His tracks fused genuine humanity into music, yet executives rejected anything that wasn't generic and expected, and so be it. If they couldn't understand his art, he would incorporate them into it until they did. He had 3 months until he was to perform a private show for Mighty One's board members. 3 months to plan his magnum opus. He transferred obscene amounts of money to a veterinarian in exchange for containers of nitrous oxide, then bribed the stage technician at Mighty One's private theater for access to the room. His celebrity granted him a benefit of the doubt no regular person could conceive. When the show was ready, gas seeped into the room as executives and stagehands awaited Ji-woon's conveniently running behind schedule. When he arrived, half-conscious bodies were splayed in their seats and crawling across the floor. He worked quickly, binding everyone, pausing only when he came to Yun-Jin, the woman who had plucked him from a mud hole and set him on the path he deserved. She would be rewarded, granted special access to the coming display of wonder. Even under sedation, she fought, a raging storm within her, far stronger than the others. He propped her up as the lone audience member, prying her eyes open. The others, sniveling and sobbing, were brought on stage to perform their final act. With a contemplated sneer, he slapped makeup onto their faces and shone stage lights upon them. They became his instruments. To the sound of self-produced melodies, he tortured them, gracefully dashing from one body to another, conducting an operatic crescendo from their wailings. They shouted, whimpered, screamed, and cried for their loved ones, cried for their mothers. It was a magnificent outpouring of emotion, of what it meant to be human, and they did it with eyes fixated on Ji-woon. Viscera drained from the stage until, with the toss of his throwing knife, the final human instrument fell silent and the music stopped. Covered in sweat and blood, an exhausted Ji-woon looked to Yun-Jin and bowed. Curtain call. He had attained perfection. With blade in hand, he made his way to Yun-Jin, prepared to tie up loose ends before the credits rolled. But, as he reached her, the fog. From where? He didn't know. But it billowed around them, damped, cool, comfortable. He saw the grand stage, hospitals and temples, forests and slaughterhouses, an eternal plain adorned with rusted hooks, sustained by the million eyes that would watch him, run from him, experience him. All he had to do was accept, become an implement of the fog, and most importantly, make them scream. Encore. Armed with an arsenal of throwing knives, the Trickster overwhelms fleeing survivors with a relentless barrage of blades. Seemingly safe actions like vaulting windows and dropping pallets turn into target practice for this twisted K-pop idol. whose stylish showmanship is rivaled only by his gleeful bloodlust. He is a ranged killer, able to quickly unleash a flurry of blades by using his power showstopper. His personal perks, Starstruck, Hex Crowd Control, and No Way Out, allow him to quickly down would-be rescuers and block areas of the environment to his advantage. Hex Crowd Control, a hex that ensures those lesser than you are properly herded. Whenever a survivor performs a rush vault action, Hex Crowd Control triggers its effects, blocks the vaulted window to every survivor for the next 60 seconds. All effects of the Hex perk persist until its Hex totem is cleansed or blessed.
You have no control. People like you never did.
No Way Out. You are not going to let just anyone into the VIP room. For each survivor you hook for the first time, No Way Out gains 1 token. Once the exit gates have been powered, No Way Out activates. When a survivor interacts with an exit gate switch, you receive a loud noise notification, and the entity blocks both exit gate switches. For 12 seconds, an additional 12 seconds per token in your possession, up to a combined maximum of 60 seconds.
That sound I need. Let me hear it again.
Starstruck. Your unmatched showmanship dazzles all. When carrying a survivor, Starstruck activates. Survivors suffer from the exposed status effect while in your terror radius. The status effect lingers for 30 seconds after leaving your terror radius. After hooking or dropping the carried survivor, Starstruck deactivates. The status effect persists for 30 seconds for any survivor inside your terror radius at that moment. Starstruck has a cooldown of 60 seconds when the survivor is no longer being carried.
Enjoy this moment. You get so close.
The Trickster is one of the most flashiest killers to enter in the entity's realm, and he will show the survivors true showmanship, unlike a certain clown. But this isn't the end for Ji-Woon's story, because as we look at the tome, we see that he remembers one specific kill that holds a special place in his heart.
Ji-Woon lives within the sounds of Rio de Janeiro. Water splashes into a basin. A skateboard's wheels grind over asphalt. A rufous-bellied thrush chirps, and the voice. The angelic ethereal sound of a young Brazilian man singing floats from an open window. Ji-Woon knows the man. Lucas. He's good. Nowhere near my level, but a diamond nonetheless. His voice is the brushstroke Ji-Woon has been searching for. To think Lucas practically fell into his lap, the Brazilian man having sung at a recording studio Ji-Woon visited. With Lucas's voice, Ji-Woon can create art. Genuine, agonizing art. Silky, blood-curdling terror. Ji-Woon has already prepared a warehouse at an abandoned harbor for tomorrow's act. Even the most mundane detail required his attention. In the past week, he's transitioned between concert rehearsals to disguising his celebrity visage, staking out his victim, assuming alternate identities, purchasing supplies, and stealing recording equipment. All while paying off his security detail to leave him be. The mundane details are what elevate the splendor of his artwork. Lucas will be dead in a day. And it will be beautiful. Ji-Woon freezes as he reaches his hotel room. The door opened a crack. He faintly hears someone rummaging inside. So be it. He knew a crazed fan would take things too far someday. How could they resist him? But he's ready. He'll defend himself, test the invader for operatic sounds like an impromptu aria as he surprises them with a blade in their gut. He pats the knife concealed above his ankle. Ready. Pushes the door open, steps softly on plush carpet, hears the invader around the corner, sees Yun-Jin, his manager. Fury meets fury. How dare you step foot in here? Where the hell have you been? She's paranoid about death threats they've been getting from a fan. When security couldn't locate Ji-woon, she came snooping. It's laughable. The threats were nothing but a ploy, a boogeyman he created to throw Yun off his trail if she ever got too close. But he should have expected this. Yun's on top of everything. It's what he respects in her, what makes them a great team. He brings the million-dollar voice, and she smashes through any problem in their way. Usually it works in his favor. In her hand she holds... No, damn it. His sampler. It contains his personal project, the screams of his murder victims layered into songs. It's an early draft, lacking subtlety. The violence and horror a bit too blatant for the faint of heart. She's disgusted. Couldn't hear beyond the terrorized voices to understand the beauty inherent in human suffering. The hairs on Ji-woon's neck stand on end. He sees the moment with clear eyes. They're dancing on a razor's edge, with Yun dangerously close to discovering who he truly is. Yun holds the sampler as if it's dripping blood. The only solace in Ji-woon's mind is that she doesn't understand what it really is. He knows her. If she thought the sounds were actual murders, she'd have tried to knee him in the crotch and run. But the anger still rattles through her as she moves up to his face. What is this twisted horror bullshit? What if this leaked? You're already attracting crazed, violent fans. How would it look if the media heard the demented sounds you're working on? Mighty One would drop you. Your career would be dead. Ji-woon knows what she really fears. Her career would be dead. For as tall as she stands, as strong as she swings, she's nothing but a scared girl, afraid of failure. He knows how to play her. Drops his head, breathes deeply, wipes the back of his hand over his eyes. Yun, ever since the death of No Spin, the fire, I'm riddled with horrid thoughts. I lost my friends and I fear I'm losing my mind. I see awful things behind closed eyes. All that guides me through the dark fog is turning my pain into sound, pouring the throes of death from my heart to a song. Yun's face softens. She sits, commiserates with him. Inside, he's reliving the divine screams of his bandmates as they burned, his swelling heart as they screamed his name, but on his face, he shows nothing but contortions of tragedy. She excuses his error in judgment, confiscates the sampler, requests he stay on hotel grounds until the concert is over. It's for his own good, his safety. She tells him to get a drink from the minibar and cool down. He quietly nods and complies, reminding himself to steal back the sampler in a few days. He lets her pretend she has what he's holding. Control. Despite the stifling humidity, Ji-woon hides under a hoodie, large sunglasses concealing his face. Now's not the time to attract attention from rabid fans. He waits till Yun is in a meeting and strolls out of the hotel, a bag of necessities in hand. It's his show now. He pulls earbuds from his pocket, allows the music to envelop him. The song How I Became, recorded 6 months ago in Seoul. It stands as a metaphor for his childhood, written one drunken night while looking over old photographs. He is 7 years old. He sits at the back of the class. He's uncomfortable being seen and speaking. But today is different. In a few minutes, he's presenting on his favorite thing. A young boy shows the class his hamster, but Ji-woon doesn't care. He holds his flute, going over the notes to the song he wrote. He shuffles to the front of the class, places his sweaty fingers on the instrument. Following a deep, unsteady breath, he gently blows out a wisp of air, creating a light, whimsical sound. He closes his eyes, moves his fingers precisely, playfully dancing over each note. He ignores the squeaks of the hamster. The flute's sound carries like chimes in the wind. With one final soul-piercing note, he smiles and opens his eyes. His classmates are huddled around the rodent, laughing with its every move. His teacher, too. He walks to the group. Students pass the hamster around as it squeaks incessantly. It finds itself directed into Ji-woon's palm. He takes it in both hands. With one steady movement, he squeezes. A squeal, a slight crunch. No more sound. The children scream. Ji-woon feels nothing. Storm clouds overtake the sky as the first drops of rain spatter onto Ji-woon's sunglasses. He breathes deeply, prepares for what he's played over in his mind. The anticipation nearly brings him to his knees, the joy of the artistic process. He strides to the rear door of a cheap 1980s sedan, glances both ways, and appraises the few locals walking the street. Certain no one's watching, he jams a straightened coat hanger around the top of the window, pushing it through the other side. His thin fingers work quickly. Prior experience in breaking an entry pays off. He hooks the wire around the door lock and flicks it up. Without missing a beat, he slides inside, closes the door, and flattens himself along the back seat. He takes off his hoodie and sunglasses. From his bag, he pulls out rope, a blade, a dusty rag, and a bottle of chloroform. He waits, takes out his earbuds, listens to a song that's not his own, one he heard long ago. He is 8 years old. He sits on his father's shoulders, looking over a sea of human bodies. An elaborate stage is ahead, illuminated by colored spotlights. A man in gaudy, audacious clothing stands in front of a microphone. On each side is a guitarist. Behind him, a drummer. A crash of sound, beautiful rhythmic music, a voice that twists delicately through the melody. His father shouts something, but he can't hear, shouts again. "This is what you'll do. This is where your talent will take you." He feels a tingle through his spine and sees something incredible. Everyone enraptured, focused intently on the sound of a single man. The emotion of thousands is guided by his voice. He is seen by all. He is loved, and he is wondrous. Ji-woon never played his flute again. He reveled in sounds that reached global audiences, attracted screaming fans, turned men and women into idols. His childhood fear vanished as he learned to divulge himself through the intricacy and pliability of pop, his inner thoughts riding atop sound waves, fusing together with other genres, rock, hip-hop, jazz, punk. It was the music that could deliver him the explosive fame he deserved, a promise that he would never be upstaged. He was no longer confined to his timid shell. He revealed himself through his mastery of music, poured his heart into sound. He became envied, lusted over, and respected for the hits that spilled from his lungs. He takes the earbuds in his hands and smiles. How miraculous that a boy became a god. Rain hammers down on the car's roof. Ji-woon checks the time. On any other day, Lucas would be in his car already. He knows this. He's done his homework. But Lucas is late, and Ji-woon wonders if the storm has altered plans. He feels control slipping away, replaced by something else. It pushes against his chest, forces him to gasp for air heavy and sticky in his lungs. Everything's ruined. He claws his nails into the car seat, forces his mouth shut to keep himself from screaming. All the planning for nothing. He doesn't have time before leaving Brazil to find another beautiful voice. Quickly, he needs music, fumbles for his earbuds, drops them to the floor, frantically scours. The only song playing is his teeth audibly grinding. As he prepares to spill into the street, he sees him. Lucas, drenched under the deluge, walks to the driver's side door. "Get your shit together. The show's about to begin." Ji-woon grabs Lucas's neck in a chokehold, shoves the chloroform-soaked cloth into his face. The two struggle in a frenzied dance. Lucas twists from side to side, reaching his arms back, grabbing for anything. Ji-woon resists the movement, holding the man in place with all his might. Rain smashes down, muting the battle under the pattering of 100 drops. concealing the outside behind a windshield of streaming water. Lucas grabs a handful of hair and pulls Ji-woon forward, breaking the chokehold. He bites deep into Ji-woon's wrist, drawing blood. Ji-woon screams through gritted teeth, pushing the cloth harder into Lucas's face until he's beating him with it. Lucas flails his other arm in a desperate bid, searching for a solution with no plan. His hand relaxes, releasing Ji-woon's hair. He slumps forward, head hitting the steering wheel, blasting the horn. Ji-woon scurries over the seat, pushes Lucas's limp body to the passenger side. He leans back, takes a moment to catch his breath, looks in the rearview mirror, inspects his face, hair, and through a sheet of rain sees a sight he never expected. Yun's car pulling up behind him. He grabs the keys from Lucas's pocket, jams them in the ignition, and slams the accelerator down. Lucas's limp body jostles back and forth in the passenger seat. Street-side shops and graffitied walls are a blur as Ji-woon veers around a corner. Wind and rain lash at the city as if dead set on blowing it apart. Ji-woon loses track of his plan. Usually, he would have Yun fix his problems, but now it's all wrong. He doesn't recognize the streets he's speeding down, only has a vague idea of the direction. Yun remains on his tail. She doesn't know when to quit. The tenacity and courage that proved useful when negotiating his record deal is infuriating now. He's losing control of his artistic process. Hands squeeze the wheel. He'd rip it from the steering column if he could. No, you're not going down like this. You have art to make, damn it! He flicks on the radio. Two men talking about something he doesn't know. Searches the channels. A commercial for a fast food restaurant. Recognizes the jingle. Keeps going. Lands on, there it is. Brazilian dance music. Rapid tempo, heavy bass line, percussive guitar notes, and a smooth voice. He pushes the pedal to the floor, dodges a few kids playing in the storm, bolts past an old pickup truck, praying no one comes the other way, swings the wheel hard to the left, nearly loses control in deep water, but recovers to find himself in a perfect turn. Guns it as the song hits the chorus, trusts in the music, shifts with the tempo, slides with the riffs, feels the beauty in everything he does. Music courses through him. He is living art. He is the crescendo. Behind him, Yun's car comes to a crashing halt. It doesn't matter. The music goes on. Ji-woon pulls into the harbor he'd staked out days ago. He reluctantly turns off the radio and scans the area. No sign of Yun behind him, but he's on his guard. Somehow, she knew how to find him. He pulls out his phone, his Mighty One company phone. She's tracking me like an overzealous babysitter. Should have expected this from her. Always a micromanager. But she couldn't have known he was driving the car, only that he was in it. Ji-woon drags out Lucas, barely conscious, and pushes a blade into his back. Before shutting the door, he takes his phone and texts a simple message to Yun. Help. He tosses the device on the car seat along with the rag of chloroform and rope. Needs more evidence. He cuts his palm and presses a bloody hand to the window. That'll do. With a thrust of his blade, he pushes Lucas forward. Thunder shakes the frame of the abandoned warehouse. Lucas sits in front of Ji-woon, bound to a chair, ready to be slaughtered, to sing, to create beauty. Ji-woon pulls out his blade, but hesitates. Something's wrong. He was too messy getting here. He wants to dive into his art, let the blood spill, but Yun threw him off his game. He can't shake the feeling. He knows she doesn't give up easily, or at all. Walks over to a window and looks out. Endless rain, lightning, and there, like a drowned rat skulking through sewage, Yun, so damn persistent. And further back, the flashing lights of a police car. Yun stumbled into a bloody game and has the power to end him in one move. He rummages through his pockets for his earbuds. Can't find them, can't focus, feels the plan slipping away, sees an end to his art, the music cut short, his vision incomplete. No, he can't let it end. He hears the music. It's always been there, sitting on his father's shoulders, washing over him. He inhales it. It circulates through his veins, becomes him. He'll never go back to being the boy he once was. He's an idol. He's a god. He's the Trickster. And he has one last trick to play.